Hello, everyone. So now that the comment period on the FAA's Remote ID NPRM is over, I thought I'd give you a little update on what's been going on. So last Monday was the deadline for submitting your comments to the FAA's Remote ID proposal, or the NPRM, and it looks like, at least when I load the page, that there's about 53,000 comments, which is a pretty big number. I was really hoping there would be 100,000 or hundreds of thousands, since there are over 1 point something million registered drone operators in the United States. But I still think that is probably a surprise to the FAA that there really was that many comments. And now that it's too late for you to submit any comments online, I have heard people say that the FAA might still accept some comments if you send them a letter through the mail, and that they will accept those for some reasonable amount of time. I have no idea how long that is, but if you really want to get in a comment and you didn't, give that a shot. And I've also heard that you can make comments on an existing comment in the NPRM, but I poked around and I did not see a way to do that. Now, there is one comment that I want to bring your attention to specifically, and that is DJI's 89-page submission. And it's definitely worth taking the time to read it. It is a very well-written submission. And there is one section in here where DJI gives an example scenario that I think is really well done. I find it kind of hilarious and funny that they put this in an otherwise very professional, well, it's still in this very professional response to the FAA, but I still really enjoyed it. So because I liked it so much, I'm going to read the whole thing here for you right now. And it starts at the bottom of page 46, where it says an example scenario. The FAA provides some example operating scenarios in its NPRM, involving characters such as Patty, Charlie, Linus, Lucy, Schroeder, and Schultz. Here is an alternative scenario. Homer enjoys traveling across the country, taking aerial photography of the places he travels. Because he is on a low budget, he owns a Doodad 100 drone, which has a basic design and does not have a connection capability to the cellular network or to a satellite network. The UAS does have a Wi-Fi feature as part of its command and control link and remote controller. One day, Homer travels to a location about an hour from his home at the edge of a commercial area to take an aerial photo of the adjacent mountains. While setting up his drone, he notices that a Wi-Fi network named Starbucks Wi-Fi is available at low signal strength. This means the internet is available in this location. Homer works in a nuclear power plant and knows how important it is to be safe and follow all the rules, so he asks a passerby where the Starbucks is located. It is about 2 short blocks away, so Homer reverses the work he was doing to set up his UAS flight, reloads his car, drives over to the Starbucks, and enters the store where he buys a tall Pike Place roast coffee. This is the smallest size and cheapest item. In order to obtain the Wi-Fi password for the Starbucks public internet connection, which is for customers only. The purchase cost $2.29, including tax. Homer already had plenty of coffee before he left home, so he throws the new coffee away because he does not want to be jittery during his flight operation. He returns to the intended takeoff location and begins to set up his UAS for flight again. Before takeoff, he configures his Doodad 100 to connect to the Starbucks Wi-Fi, which it does. Homer then points to the UAS software to his remote ID provider, QuimbyMap. The service fails to fully load because the Starbucks Wi-Fi, although present, is 2 blocks away and is too weak to connect properly to the remote ID supplier. Homer tries half a dozen times over a period of 20 minutes but cannot fully connect to the remote ID provider. He cannot move his location closer to Starbucks and still take the photo he wanted without causing the UAA flight to be flown over people and traffic in violation of FAA regulations. The Doodad 100 is designed and certified to comply with FAA Remote ID and therefore recognizes that the internet is available, but that the Remote ID service is not working properly, so it locks down its takeoff function. Although Homer's UAS is able to perform a broadcast remote ID using its Wi-Fi equipment, the FAA rules do not allow that method alone to be sufficient means of compliance in this scenario. Over an hour after he originally arrived on location, Homer packs up his equipment, dismayed that his photography operation was wrecked by FAA regulations. Homer's wasted costs for the day includes the unwanted coffee, the gasoline to travel 86 miles round trip, his wasted personal time, his day purchase of UAS insurance from Burns Drone Insurance, and part of his subscription fee to Quimby Map. He recounts his experience later in the day to his friend Mo, who was contemplating buying a drone as a Christmas gift for his son, but after hearing this story, Mo decides against it. After a few dozen experiences of a similar nature, Homer decides to give up aerial photography and buys a VR headset instead of upgrading to a newer UAS product. So that's the end of that little section, and I think it does a great job of explaining how ridiculous the requirement of having an internet connection available at your flying location is, and that you can't just use something more like a broadcast instead. So there are lots of other great parts of this document that DJI put together, and the whole thing is just great and worth the read. Things like telling the FAA that they are wrong about how many DJI drones can be retrofit, which they say is 0, to comply with remote ID, even though the FAA specifically calls out DJI as one of those manufacturers and that they were told that they'd be able to retrofit them. They also use data about their drone to phone video that they put out and all the negative feedback and comments they received from it. And they use that as ammunition to show the FAA that, hey, people don't want this. This is not a good idea, and people are not going to comply with it. They even stand up for us little guys and talk about how important home-built aircraft are and how they are not a risk and shouldn't have to comply with remote ID. They talk about free allocations, that they shouldn't be done the way they are done. And something I also called out in my comment is that they call for cybersecurity requirements, but they really don't specify it at all. They just made it way too vague. They also hired a Dr. Christian Dippman to consider all the costs, and he concluded that the total cost over the next 10 years would be more than $5.6 billion to, I think that was to all of the drone operators out there, or to the economy as a whole, and not the $582 million that the FAA suggests. So those are just a few of the highlights. So if you can, please take the time to read this. I think it's worth it. I know I've said that over and over again throughout this video, but anyway, I think you should do it. So moving on to other news, the last Friday and Saturday was the UFDA cruise protest, and I wasn't able to make it, but it sounds like they had a great turnout. I heard Matt, Old Gravy Leg, and Enoch talking. I think they said there were something like at least 300 plus people that were there. They were all never really gathered in one location at the same time, so they didn't really have a solid count, but they were pretty sure there was over 300 people. The FAA on Friday told all the employees that they didn't have to come into work that day because they were somehow afraid of the protest or something. So I think that definitely got through to the FAA somewhat. And I think overall the protest went very, very well. There's lots of great videos online if you want to get more information about it and how it went. And I think Rotor Riot just posted a video today, as well as lots of other people that were there posted videos. I also heard from the UFDA crew that someone at the FAA requested some of the protest signs so that they could put them up in their office. I think that's an interesting result. And I also heard that the UFDA crew were a little bit short on money. They did raise over $10,000, but they spent a little bit more than that on the protest. So if you can, please consider going to their website and making a small donation to help them cover their costs and possibly plan future protests like this, possibly when the weather's a bit nicer. So now that the commenting period is over, what's next? Well, you probably saw the letter from Race Day Quads about a lawsuit related to the remote ID proposal. And I'm no lawyer, so I can't say anything about that. But it is something that I'm going to try to be watching closely. I don't feel like there's anything they can do specifically until this proposal is finalized, but they can definitely get organized, get some funds together, start talking to lawyers, and be prepared for when this does happen. So now that the comments are over, you can't submit any comments. There's not a whole lot you can do, but one thing that we believe could make a difference is that you could contact your representatives, especially if those representatives in your state are, say, on the aviation subcommittee, sending them a letter, calling them, talking to them, letting them know how you feel about this might be able to make them put some pressure on the FAA. So keep an eye out for more information coming from the FPV Freedom Coalition on exactly how to do this, maybe what to say, maybe some form letters. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I would think in the next couple of weeks, the FPV Freedom Coalition will put out a lot more information on that. So that's about all I have for now, and thanks for watching.